Coming up, the most expensive album of all time. Cost over $5 million. Everything bad that could happen to a band happened to these guys while they were making this album. And nothing could stop it. Actually, when today's band got started on this album, they were intentionally trying to beat out the biggest selling album of all time. That was their goal. Be a little revenge on their part since that same album kept their last release from reaching #1. But really, today's story is about the title track of this album. A top 10 song that perfectly sums up the magic that went into the making of this seminal record. And it blows me away every time I hear it. It's one of my favorite songs. Well, it's my favorite song from this band. You're going to love it as much as I do. The story's great. Get ready. It's coming up on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the good old days where you bought an album, every song was great, and you could listen to side A and side B all the way through, never skipping any of the songs, you're going to dig this channel. Nostalgia all the time. Make sure that you subscribe below right now. Click that big red button. Click the bell as well so that you always know when our new interviews and videos are coming. We also have a Patreon where we have exclusive content, full interviews up there. Check it out below. Also, we have our Vintage Years collection by Thomas Estrada. Check that out below as well. So it's time for another edition of #1 in Our Hearts. This is a show that honors songs that were so unbelievably great, they absolutely should have been #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. But for, various reasons, could be radio play, lack of marketing, label support, or just, sheer stupidity, the song came up short. I'm excited today to get into the story behind Def Leppard's top 10 hit and title track, Hysteria, from their 1987 record of the same name. When it went to number 10, the top 3 songs in the country were number 3, Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. Number 2 is Endless Summer Nights by Richard Marx. And at number 1 was Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. Def Leppard definitely deserved a #1 spot. I like Man in the Mirror, but it was #1 for quite a few weeks. It could have given one of those to Def Leppard. But let's get into Def Leppard, Hysteria. Phenomenal song. We can't really get into the song without kind of setting up what it took to get to that song. Making a mega hit album had always been in Def Leppard's sights. It had been in their plans from the beginning of the band, really. So after the breakout success of 1983's Pyromania, a record that the band said they were trying to create Star Wars for the ears, I love that, lead singer Joe Elliot, guitarist Phil Collen, and Steve Clark, bassist Rick Savage, and drummer Rick Allen were poised to finally do this. The idea for their epic 4th studio album was to create the first hard rock album of its kind, the Thriller of rock. They wanted to create the Michael Jackson Thriller of rock, where every track was strong enough to be a blockbuster single. Michael Jackson's Thriller had released 7 hit singles, and Def Leppard was keen to do the exact same thing. Incidentally, it had been Thriller that kept Pyromania from reaching the top of the album chart, back in 1983. And the guys wouldn't soon forget that. Even so, Pyromania sold 6 million copies in America, eventually becoming a diamond album, making it the biggest album by a hard rock band that year, and arguably making Def Leppard the biggest British rock band since Led Zeppelin, really. By the mid-'80s, Def Leppard seemed positioned for even greater success. And honestly, with the return of legendary producer Robert Mutt Lange, who had helmed Pyromania, how could they not continue to rise or have a shot at the title? I mean, after all, Lange was on a massive hot streak. Besides his work with Def Leppard, he had, captained 3 AC/DC albums, perfect albums, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, and For Those About to Rock. He also did Foreigner's #1 smash 4, and also the Cars' #3 masterpiece, Heartbeat City. Now, little did Def Leppard know, things weren't exactly going according to plan. We've discussed this before in other pieces, but I really need to set up the story since it leads to the making of the actual song Hysteria, and it all leads to that. Def Leppard's Floydian top 10 hit, Hysteria, in my opinion, the best song off this beloved album, to get there, it would be an incredibly rough 3-year path for the band to accomplish their lofty goals. Beginning with the news that Mutt Lange wasn't going to stick around to produce the album. He was burned out, and he told the guys he was too exhausted to take on another project. He'd been burning the midnight oil, for sure. So he was out, just as the band was, getting started. Producer plan B was to team up with songwriter turned producer Jim Steinman, the late Jim Steinman. Now, the band had some initial reservations, but they were talked into it. The match wouldn't last very long, though. Starting in the summer of '84, Steinman sat in the producer's chair for a short 8 weeks, but not short enough from the band's perspective, actually. Def Leppard really struggled to gel with his approach. The two parties were coming at it from two completely different directions, different angles. Looking to capture the band in the moment, Steinman was content with just a few takes per track. However, these guys were schooled in Mutt's minutia. That is, they were used to, Lange breaking each song down to the molecular level and then reassembling them again. The partnership with Jim Steinman, it was a straight up disaster, resulting in one of the priciest miscalculations ever. According to Joe Elliot, it cost the band a big 6-figure sum just to cancel his contract. We had to sell a lot of records just to pay him off, is what he said. It was this trial and some coming up that would definitely aid in writing the title track of Hysteria. As we get into the inspiration and really perspiration behind the title track Hysteria, I want to thank our amazing sponsor, Zenni. The key to Zenni is in their incredible variety and their ease of order. You can get prescription eyewear, reading glasses, sunglasses, blocks with blue light protection, transition lenses that go from light to dark when you go outside, and then some. There's so much variety. And you can choose your style, your color, all that. And order with ease from their app or from our link below, and they deliver them right to your door. Check out Zenni today. Get yourself a pair. So on New Year's Eve 1984, Def Leppard drummer Rick Allen, whose bandmates affectionately held as the Thunder God, he was driving at high speed down a country road in Sheffield, England. This is when he lost control of his Corvette on a sharp curve. As Allen whipped around the corner, his car hit a brick wall, taking out a lot of the bricks in this process. And as the car skidded along the wall, it flipped over and it actually landed on its roof. Rick's fiancée, Miriam Berenson, she was trapped in the passenger seat and had to be cut free from the wreckage. She was badly bruised and she suffered from some head injuries. But Rick, he was thrown from the vehicle out of the sunroof, landing in a field on the other side of the brick wall. And in the process, as we all know, his left arm was ripped off at the shoulder. Specialists were able to reattach his arm, but it was only temporary. The reattached arm became infected and they had to amputate. Needless to say, the band was devastated, by what had happened to their brother, and their top priority was helping him recover. There was not 1 second where these guys would consider moving on without him. I think that's so admirable. In time, Allen adopted a custom-designed drum kit with 4 electronic pedals for his left foot to play the parts that he used to play with his left arm. Absolutely incredible. A legend in our day. We used to share that all the time. The one-armed drummer. He really was the Thunder God. On August 16th, 1986, Allen returned to live drumming at the Monsters of Rock Festival at Castle Donington, and it was an incredible sight. The band slowly continued production on their own. They worked with engineer Nigel Green. This is until they received the ecstatic news that Mutt Lange was going to come back and help them finish this album. But then the sessions were once again delayed after Mutt got into a car crash of his own. Add to that a case of mumps for singer Joe Elliot, and I guess you could say that, the hits just kept on coming. Everything was against this band. Said Joe Elliot, we had hellish moments making that record. Rick lost his arm. Mutt Lange also had a car crash. I got mumps, I lost my voice. There was all sorts of madness going on. Hysteria indeed. But wait. Finally, the chaos started to stabilize. Mutt and the band got down to business. They got back to their vision of creating their hard rock answer to Michael Jackson's Thriller. Overall, Hysteria would take a long and challenging 3 years to complete, with a staggering price tag of over $5 million. It was at the time the most expensive record that had ever been made in the UK. But after hearing the result, there's just no doubt that the time and money were definitely worth the investment. It certainly stood the test of time and then some. The original title for the album was Animal Instinct, but Alan came up with an alternate suggestion, Hysteria. And that, of course, is what stuck. As Joe remembered it, Rick Allen thought of the title in the hospital because people were trying to climb up laundry chutes to get photos of him. And Rick Allen had another memory to add. He said that he came up with the title Hysteria while talking with guitarist Phil Collen and Steve Clark in their apartment. I guess the whole place was painted green on the inside. It kind of felt like an asylum. Phil asked me how I was feeling after all that we'd been through. I said, this whole thing feels like hysteria. The word hysteria was the perfect choice for this album. It fully captured what the band had been through to bring this thing to life, the Frankenstein monster of rock. Hysteria would, of course, become the landmark album that Def Leppard had envisioned all along. Sold more than 20 million copies worldwide. It was the biggest record of their career. Hysteria hit number 1 in the US and the UK, and according to plan, it produced a slew of hit singles. 7 were released just like Thriller. 4 reached the top 10 on the Hot 100 and another 2 the top 20. And 6 out of 7 made it into the top 10 on the mainstream rock chart. It really was the hard rock Thriller. Outside their single Women, which came in at a head-scratching number 80. The remaining 6 songs averaged a number 7 spot on the Hot 100, including a number 3 hit with Armageddon It. There was the number 2 Pour Some Sugar on Me and a number 1 with Love Bites. The rest of the singles included Animal, Rocket, and of course today's featured song, the title track, Hysteria. So number 4 track on side 2 of Hysteria is personally, like I said, my favorite Def Leppard song of all time. Its lyrics and musical makeup are so haunting, so moving. I get hysterical, hysteria. But can you feel it? Do you believe it? It's such a magical mysteria. When you get that feeling, better start believing. For me, Def Leppard just doesn't get any better than this. So the record was actually getting close to being finished by the time they got started on Hysteria. I guess Def Leppard needed about 3 more songs to finish up the album. They were looking for those big hits. 3 straight up rockers all the way. Then one weekend, Rick Savage and Phil Collen got together to come up with some ideas for another rocker. But instead, Savage told Collen, look, it's an idea I've had for a few months now. I know it's not what we're looking for, but let's just see what we can develop here. What he had was the start of the verse structure and the intro for Hysteria. And as it turns out, Phil had something that he'd been working on as well, a part that would become actually the bridge of this song. So Sav glued the 2 ideas together, and Phil started coming up with melodies for the verses as well. It was rolling. And after about 2 hours of work, even though it wasn't the hard hitter that they'd really planned on, because they wanted a rock song, there was just too much of a song there to ignore. And it was good. It was great. All that was left for them to do was to come up with a chorus. But the guys decided to put that one on hold. They said, maybe we should wait until Monday. After all, writing a power ballad wasn't really in the game plan. And they wanted to see what the rest of the guys thought of this song before they invested a lot more time into it. Well, Monday morning rolled around and the band regrouped at the studio. Sav and Phil told everybody that they thought they were onto something special here. But they wanted some feedback. So they played what they had of Hysteria, and everyone was blown away. They loved it. So guess what became the top priority? Mutt and the rest of the band got to work coming up with ideas of how to finish this song. And really, in the end, everyone made significant contributions to this song to make it the killer that it was. Steve Clark added a part that fit to the end of the bridge. Rick Allen managed the drums, of course, but he also came up with the title. And, Joe, Mutt, Phil, and Sav, they all assisted in writing the lyrics. It was all 5 musicians plus producer. They're all credited as writers on this track. Musically, Hysteria has some really creative stuff going on. For example, Steve and Phil both play the same solo, as if they were double tracking each other. And about 3 minutes and 10 seconds in, there's a breakdown with this funky backyard echo. It's so cool. Actually, in total, there are 11 different guitar parts layered into Hysteria. 11. Mind-blowing. But if that wasn't enough, according to Phil Collen, on the Gotta Know Tonight part, the band recorded every guitar string separate. Mutt said that he wanted it all on guitar. It had to sound non-arpeggiated. Because even if you hit a power chord, there's a certain amount of arpeggiation. But if you hit every note separately, it sounded totally different. It was a brilliant sound. When the band heard the finished mix for the track, they just could not believe how good it sounded. It was amazing. It was awesome. I think the rest of us felt the same way. To me, like I said, it felt very Pink Floyd. First time I heard it, I had to shake my head in disbelief a couple of times, mistaking it for Floyd. Though in my mind, I knew it was Def Leppard. Thematically, Phil Collen has said that Hysteria is about finding spiritual enlightenment. That's maybe not what you would think of after your first listen. After all, it is a power ballad, and the lyrics definitely have a love song component to it. For example, I'm in love, I'm in deep. Yeah, hypnotized, I'm shaken to my knees. And then I gotta know tonight, if you're alone tonight, can't stop this feeling, can't stop this fire. Those are just a couple of examples, but it does have a spiritual element to it. I think he's right. On one level, it's a love song, but it has so many layers to it. And at the heart of it, there really is this spiritual vibe. It's uplifting. It's totally inspiring. Hysteria just has a depth to it that's hard to describe, but you can intuitively feel it. Collen said, not many people know that because it sounds like just getting hysterical. But it's actually about that. It's about finding this deeper thing, whether you believe in it or not. I love that. Hysteria was the 3rd UK single from the album. There it was released on November 16th of 87, and it reached number 26 on the singles chart. In the US, Hysteria was released a couple of months later in January of 88. Here in the States, of course, like I said, it went to number 10 on the Billboard charts and went to number 9 on the mainstream rock chart. Elsewhere, it stalled at number 90 in Australia, surprisingly, but it did break the top 20 in Ireland, going to number 19. In Canada, it went to number 13. It was the song that kept Hysteria, the album, floating along, till Pour Some Sugar on Me came in and just blasted it into the stratosphere. Now, sadly, Hysteria doesn't have much of a pop culture footprint. Nothing noteworthy in the way of media placements. It's at least been covered a couple of times on record. Matt Nathanson has, he's given it a go.
I get hysterical, hysteria.
Taylor Swift joined Def Leppard on stage to sing it as well. But this song, it's so underrepresented. It really kind of bothers me. I mean, this song has so much urgency, so much passion. It feels like a no-brainer for film and television. I mean, it really does deserve a lot more exposure. It's probably the most cinematic Def Leppard song of them all. And that's saying something. It is. I mean, it's the definition of cinematic. Go back and listen. You'll see what I'm saying. But in spite of all that, when all is said and done, Def Leppard and Mutt Lange had accomplished their mission. They made a landmark rock album that would be the pinnacle of the band's career. Said Joe Elliot, "From the day we started in 1977, we wanted to be the biggest band in the world." That was their goal. And by the time Hysteria came out and the tour kicked in for a little while, we were. To me, the sessions for Hysteria and the adversity surrounding it and how the band persevered, it's truly one of the great rock and roll stories ever. Def Leppard showed incredible resilience, incredible strength, perseverance, and resolve to create a hard rock masterpiece. And as for the title track, Hysteria is without a doubt one of the best Def Leppard tracks ever. Like I said, it's my personal favorite song that they've ever done. I don't know that I'll ever get tired of hearing this song. And I'm in good company on this one. Rick Savage actually said it's one of his all-time favorites too. He said it's one of those songs I never kind of get tired of listening to. Never ever get tired of playing. For me, it's the highlight of the night when we play this song. There's just a special bond between the audience and the band. And not surprisingly, Hysteria is also Rick Allen's favorite Def Leppard song. I'm sure the title track has deep emotional significance to him, for him, reminding him of how he beat back death for a second chance at life. For him and for a lot of the rest of us, it epitomizes hope. 5 minutes and 54 seconds of pure magical mysteria that takes you to a whole other place. Just like the lyrics say, when you get that feeling, you better start believing, because it's a miracle for sure. And it doesn't get any better than that. I think I've shared this before, but Def Leppard Hysteria, it was like the Sgt. Pepper of Generation X, of my generation. It was the one album that you could listen to back to front without even thinking about fast forwarding or skipping a song. It was a masterpiece all the way through. Every song was a blockbuster. So my only gripe is this. I always felt that Hysteria should have been the final song on this album. I mean, it was the perfect takeaway from this blockbuster, once-in-a-lifetime record. It really summarized the sensational hard rock blockbuster of Generation X. It's like the song says, can't stop the feeling, can't stop the fire. I'm going to let Joe Elliot end with the last word from the interview we did.
We didn't know what we were doing. What we tried to create was the ultimate rock record with to be down with everything in this. What does that thing do? Let's use it. We tried to make a Sgt. Pepper for our generation. That was the blueprint. Yeah. And that's why it took so long. We went down so many dead ends and they didn't work that we came back up. The actual thing you hear didn't take that long. There was about 18 months of complete bollocks, just trying to get there, because they probably had it all mapped out. We were flapping in the wind. We didn't know what to do. It just took time, and then it all fell into place.
These are albums that have spoken to every generation.
Songs.
Yeah.
End of story. It's all songs. It's just songs. It really is. It's all about the songs.
Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Def Leppard and Hysteria, the song or the album. What are your memories of this part of Def Leppard's career, about this record, about that time? It was such a huge record. Share some of your memories below. I'd love to hear it. Check out our other Def Leppard pieces. Let's have a great discussion about this. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.